You know, one thing that kind of annoys me about Polaroid is throughout the 1980s through to the 1990s and into the 2000s, before the company shut down, Polaroid had a really bad habit of basically naming the exact same camera like 100 different things for what was effectively the exact same thing inside. And this Polaroid One Step is a great example of that. This is a One Step 600 type camera from the early 1990s. It is also known as the 636. It is also known as the One Step Close-Up. They are basically the same camera, just called something different. And Polaroid did this to basically make things as marketable as possible. The reason that I dislike this is it confuses beginners to the hobby. The amount of forum posts that you will see online of someone asking for a manual for some very nichely named version of their camera, where any manual will do because they have the same feature set, basically. For example, the Polaroid Coolcam. The only difference between this and, say, the Sun 600 LMS is that this one is red. And they also made a version of this in pink and grey. They made versions of this called the Esprit, which were in all kind of crazy color combinations. And it's basically the same thing. This is literally Malibu Stacy with a new hat, except even a hat has a function, I guess. But yeah, it just really depended on the target demographic that Polaroid was focusing their attention on. And I don't know, I always just found it a little bit annoying. So it's nice to find examples of these seemingly special edition cameras where that isn't the case. Allow me to introduce you to my little yellow friend here, the Polaroid Job Pro. Now, you got to imagine that this is back in the day before smartphones, right? These days, we take it for granted. Ever since sort of when did smartphones become mainstream? Like 2010, 2012, something like that. These days, if we need to take a photo of something, let's say, we're, renovating the house and we want to take photos of our progress as we go, or we want to take photos of a pet as they grow up or something like that, we can pull out our phone and do just that. Back in the day, if you wanted to document something, you either had to get out your old SLR camera, put film in it, shoot the photos, send the film off for developing and get prints, or you would use an instant camera. And Polaroid liked to remind people of this, and remind people of the fact that, hey, instant film is actually pretty handy if you want to document something. And that is why the Job Pro was invented. This was basically Polaroid's way of saying, hey, wouldn't it be nice to document construction projects using a Polaroid? And maybe we can make it construction yellow? That was it. That was the whole idea. Like, that was their entire brainwave. They could have literally just left it there. Their entire marketing strategy was, construction takes time. Projects often need to be documented. Why not do it with instant photos? And so they could have literally just made this thing yellow, just like they made the Coolcam red, and they could have left it there, but Polaroid didn't. Polaroid decided to actually give this thing more than just a nice coat of paint, and they introduced a few nifty features. The first feature that I want to go over is this at the back. I, honest to God, think that this should be on every single Polaroid ever released. It's a quick instruction guide. How neat is that? How many Reddit posts do you see in r/Polaroid that are like, anyone have any tips and tricks? Yeah, this one does actually. They're right here. Look at that. Written on the camera in plain English. Absolutely amazing. I like that because it's just so simple, but thematically it fits the camera. They've done it in yellow so it matches the front. And it means that you could hand this to even the most Neanderthal of tradesmen, and I'm sure they'd be able to figure it out because the instructions are quite literally written on the camera. The second thing that I think is really neat is the eyepiece here. You guys can see that bit that's reflecting. They've actually added an extra protective piece of plastic over the eyepiece hole so that dust doesn't get in. Now that's a really good idea in a construction yard where dust is going to be flying around. But it's also just a good idea in general because these cameras, when you leave them on display, dust inevitably gets into that little hole and it makes the viewfinder appear opaque after a while because the dust settles on the internal lens element. The only way that you can clean that is realistically to take the camera apart, remove the tube that the lens elements sit in, take the lens elements out and clean them and put it back together. Here, that's never really going to be a problem because the dust can't get in there to begin with. I mean, it would have cost, what, a fraction of a cent to add this on a mass production line to all the standard Polaroid 600 cameras? Really cool stuff. The camera also features a tripod socket, although to be honest, the usefulness of this I have always thought was questionable, given that there's no way to remotely release the shutter on a Polaroid 600 camera. As far as I am aware, Polaroid never made any like mechanical timer like they did for earlier SX70 cameras. The early SX70 box cameras had like this device that you would literally physically press the button for you. As far as I know, those don't exist for Polaroid 600 cameras. But the tripod socket is nice to have. You can mount it there, and then I guess if you're going to do an ambient exposure, it'll at least keep the camera a little bit more still. It's got a built-in close-up lens, although to be fair, many other Polaroid 600 cameras had that feature for if you wanted to get as close as 2 feet. But probably the coolest feature of this camera is the strap. Not only is it a beefier strap than is found on most Polaroid 600 cameras. But check this out. See this little bit? Do you know what that's for? Ta-da! It is literally for keeping a pen attached to your camera. Because of course you want to write on your image with a Sharpie. Because of course. Unfrickin' believable. One of the single greatest features I think you could ever put on an instant camera is this little piece of elastic. Just amazing. And so yeah, I hope you guys have liked this video because I thought it was just so important to point out elements of design that are all just really, really simple to implement. Like none of these extra features would have cost much money. But the user experience is just elevated that much more with those features added in. Isn't it cool? I think it's really cool. Now Polaroid also made a variety of other Job Pro cameras. Just to finish up the video, they did make it in the new styling. So they basically took the same like 90s body shape when they were making these and basically turned it yellow. As far as I know, this has many of the same features. Oh, another design element change. They've emphasized the fact that there's that second shutter button. A lot of people do not realize that on a Polaroid 600 camera, there's actually 2 buttons. Oh, I had no idea there was film in there. There's one to take a photo without flash and one to take a photo with flash. Except they're exactly the same color, so they're hard to tell apart. On the Job Pro, they made this bit gray so that it was very, very obvious, and they took that styling cue across to the later model as well. Just really neat. I just think they're neat. It's such an example that design doesn't have to be complicated to be good. Even tiny little changes that seem so insignificant can make a big difference in the overall user experience, and it doesn't have to be because of a lot of extra money. Like as I said, none of these features would have cost a significant amount of extra money in terms of production, but they did it anyway to make the camera that little bit more special. yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to say. I think of all the special edition Polaroids, the Job Pro may be my favorite, if only for the awesome color scheme it has. It's like a real bumblebee. I just love the yellow and black. It looks so cool. But I also just like that Polaroid actually made a special edition that had some extra goodies. Not just a different color. And yeah, I just wanted to talk about that. Well, I think that just about does it for this video. As always, if you like what I do, please like and subscribe. If you would like me to personally fix one of your cameras, feel free to get in touch and send it my way, whether it be an SX70 or a box type 600 such as one of these. It is possible for me to modify these cameras. For example, this Polaroid Job Pro 2 here has been modified to have autofocus internals, as well as a AAA battery adapter for use with I-type film. Yeah, simply get in touch. Feel free to send something my way, or if you like what I do, feel free to donate using the links below to my Ko-fi account. If you want me to cover more of the Polaroid Special Edition cameras in the future, feel free to make suggestions in the comments below, and I'll do my best to make short little videos about them. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.